How do grandmasters find strong moves in seconds? In this video you'll learn 10 simple rules of thumb to help you make the right decisions even in blitz and bullet. In this or similar positions, most players play pawn e6, getting ready to develop their bishop and castle. However, the other bishop is now feeling betrayed as it got stuck behind a pawn chain and it can't do much. Instead, move your bishop outside the pawn chain, then develop the other bishop as usual, and now both your bishops are active. Then the game goes on, and it brings us to another very common situation. You developed your pieces, you castled. What are you going to do next? What is your plan? You've got plenty of options to choose from. You can play almost whatever. How do you pick the right move? Here's the next rule. Develop your minor pieces and then your heavy pieces. Your heavy pieces are your rooks and queen. Think about that. Your queen, for instance, equals 3 minor pieces. However, it's not yet developed. Imagine 3 minor pieces of yours standing right there on the last rank doing nothing. You definitely need to do something about that. But the same is true for your queen. Your rook equals almost 2 minor pieces, and yet it does nothing at all. And therefore, developing your heavy pieces is just equally important. Move your queen first, usually to central squares of the second rank, and after that, bring your rooks into play, and then you are really ready to go. It is white to play here, and in such positions, most players would simply castle or maybe develop a knight, missing an opportunity to win the game on the spot. Which brings us to the next rule. The weakest square in your opponent's position is this pawn on f7, and that very often gives you an opportunity to attack it, creating significant problems for your opponent, in this case, just winning the game. While facing Mikhail Tal, his opponents would bring in a special reinforced titanium-plated pawn and put it right there on f7 because they knew no matter what, Tal is going to attack it. And they were right. That is one of the favorite pawns of Tal, that greatest weakness, the doorway to his opponent's king. And in this case, he sacrificed the queen and got to that f7 square. Now the king is forced to come forward, and then Tal gets the job done. It also resonates with the next example. Here black played bishop b7, and how come is it a losing blunder? Black doesn't seem to blunder anything, and they just make a normal developing move, which is something you're supposed to do in an opening, right? Yes, but there is one more principle, which states that you need to prioritize kingside development and castle early. Otherwise, you delay that casting, keep your king in the middle of the board, which exposes it to potential attacks. White played queen h5, pinning the pawn and threatening that knight to e6 jump, similar to the previous game of Tal. Black is trying to block it, but the queen now slides over to the center, hits the rook, and then white sacrifices the knight on e7 to blow up the position, get to the king, and win the game. While casting usually puts your king to safety, it's important to know that the main defender of your king is actually this deadly octopus on f3. Not only it guards the king and the castle itself, it also controls all the squares in front, making it impossible for an enemy to even come closer to your king. At the same time, if the knight is not present right there on f6 for whatever reason, then the situation is drastically different, and now it's very easy for you to start coming forward and bringing more and more pieces closer to your opponent's king and develop a powerful attack. Moreover, in this case, white can be even more brutal by sacrificing the bishop and then finishing the game right away. Here's a quick challenge for you. In this game, white failed to castle and now it is black to play. Can you take advantage of that? Let me know in the comments below. You might have heard that you need to put your rook to an open file. However, a lot of players don't fully understand how to make use of it and also underestimate the importance. Very often, this thing alone is enough to win the game. An open file is like a highway with no traffic jam, and you control it all. At any moment where you want to, you can advance forward rapidly and begin attacking your opponent. You can either invade the last rank and start attacking his king, or maybe you want to invade the 7th rank where all his pawns are sitting and waiting for you to attack them. And right there, it's very hard for your opponent to get rid of this annoying intruder. For instance, he's trying to do this, but after rook d7, now you attack this pawn. What can he do? He's trying to defend this one, then the other one falls, and from there, you're gonna keep attacking other pawns and you easily win. I gotta warn you though, when you start using all these tips, your opponents might get discouraged. To cheer them up, just say something like this: hey, don't worry, you either win or you learn. And in our games, you're going to learn a lot. Bonk. In this position, it was black to play. Black decided to go for his counterattack and played queen a5, hitting the pawn. However, white simply ignored it completely, continued with his own plan, and after that opened up the h-file and got to the king. Here's the problem though. At this point, black probably realized that that bishop on g7 was so vital as it guarded all these vital squares around the king, and now for lack of that bishop, white can develop his attack so easily. That's why the rule says, avoid trading your fianchettoed bishop. Minor pieces can easily be traded off in an opening or middle game phase, and that is why rook endgames are so common. For rook endgames, there is a special rule. Think about this position. White is up a pawn and it's a dangerous passed pawn. How would you play here as black? It's very natural to play the move rook b8, trying to take aim at this pawn. However, this move is a losing blunder, because it allows white to follow the next rule. Put your rook behind the passed pawn. From here, the rook not only guards the pawn, but also supports its advancement, and after whatever black does, white can keep pushing the pawn all the way forward. Sure enough, at some point black can blockade it. However, now the rook gets stuck here. You can never use this rook anymore, as soon as you get the rook out, the pawn will march forward. Therefore, your rook is just totally passive. Black should have followed the same rule himself and put his rook behind the passed pawn. Black could do it by delivering this check and then relocating the rook to the right position with a tempo. Now black is attacking the pawn, and sure enough, white can defend it. However, after that, the pawn could not move forward. The rook is doing a good job controlling all these squares, and therefore the pawn can never move forward or else it will be captured immediately. While everyone knows that you need to develop your minor pieces in an opening, somehow a lot of players don't realize that the very same rule applies to your king in an endgame. You wish to develop it, you want to get it off the lost rank, and that is your primary goal as soon as you reached an endgame position. You need to move forward. And just like in a middle game, you want to centralize your knight or your bishop, in an endgame you want to centralize your king, and if possible, you want to move it forward to attack your opponent. How would you play here as white? White is up a pawn, and this pawn is pretty close to promotion. Most players would try to advance the king forward and would spoil the game because it only leads to a stalemate and a draw. Ironically, almost any other logical move wins the game. The trick is to win the opposition. It allows you to push your opponent's king to the side and later to promote your pawn and win. While you don't have to take a vow of celibacy and worship an Ishgiri, studying just a few fundamental endgames is quick and beneficial. By the way, how would you play here as white? Let me know what you think. And if you want to have a clear path to 2000 rating, I've put together a special bundle. It is based on my own experience on my journey to Grandmaster, plus 17 years of my coaching experience, coaching thousands of students by now. And if you want to have a proven path, you can just get it by clicking the link below the video and follow it afterwards. I'll be happy to help. Either way, have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon.